We are live. Hello. Welcome to a live pop culture on Deprogram with Keri Smith. I'm one of your hosts, Keri. I'm joined tonight by Mystery Chris, who needs no introduction. Hello, Mystery Chris.
Well, howdy, Carrie. How are you?
I'm good. You know, there's a lot of ladies in the chat who love your sultry voice,
Really?
and I saw them
Mm.
talking you up. Uh, so
How you
every
doing,
time I
lady?
hear it, it sounds like you got a better microphone, even.
Oh, yeah. I guess I do. Yeah.
And then we have two guests tonight. I'm very happy to welcome Epic Mike back to the channel. Epic
Yay.
Mike, I'm so happy you joined us for pop culture. And
Yeah.
if you guys missed it, I got to hang out with him recently on Geeks and Gamers Play, a round of Mario Kart. And I was just happy that I didn't come in last every round. And now I blame him because I'm addicted to the game.
I fully accept that. And also you actually did pretty good. You beat Jeremy, and that's what really matters is to
I beat
you know
Jeremy on a round.
beat Jeremy.
Really?
Yeah. He runs the whole thing and he lost to her. She beat him, and that's all that matters. Listen,
Wow.
you're in the club now. You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
Get it
I
that
had
too.
I had nightmares I was going to be in 12th place every round. So I was
Oh
like, as
no.
long as I'm not the worst consistently, and it was
Nope.
okay. It was
And even
fun.
if you were the worst consistently, we're still having fun with it. Nobody's gonna look at you and go like, "Oh, what's going on with that?" and stuff. It's all fun. They were really surprised because they were like, "Carrie, really?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, I warned her what this was gonna be like, and she said she didn't care. So they're like, "Hey, bring her on then." So yeah.
It was fun. I had not played since the 90s, so it was like taking a
Oh
trip
yeah.
back down memory lane or Rainbow Road.
Oh yeah.
And then my fourth guest tonight, and I'm so excited for you guys and for the chat to meet him. This is my friend Aranarth. And hello, Aranarth.
Hello.
Tarthalias. Is that how you say your last name?
Uh-huh.
Aranarth Tarthalias.
That is like the coolest name I've ever heard in my life.
It is. How did you? Is there a meaning behind your name?
Yeah, it's a nerdy Tolkien reference.
Oh,
Kind of cobbled together from the line of kings from Numenor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but Mike might.
Yeah, I mean you went deep. Like
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that.
So I'm very excited to have Arnath here for a couple of reasons. One, he's one of my dear friends in real life. He has a very cool it's you based it on the Prancing Pony. It's the Prancing Pony bar in your house, which is where you're streaming from. So
Right.
anybody who's just listening, I feel bad because you can't see this cool den/fireplace bar room that he's in.
Yeah.
When did you make this?
So this used to be outdoors. This was just a deck. And we never came out here because it's Texas. Either it was 110 out or it was too cold. So we decided to repurpose this room, and my wife and I both love Tolkien, so we decided it would be really cool to have a Tolkien-themed bar, but the Green Dragon is a little too fancy to try to replicate, and the Prancing Pony is just basically a medieval tavern, so it was a little easier to do. So basically I just took the measurements of this room and designed it in a computer program, and then we built it.
So cool.
It is so cool. There are people in the chat who are saying I'm jealous of Arnarth's man cave. So before we get into the topic tonight, I just have one short announcement. The book for Deprogram Book Club this month is Political Ponerology. Just wanted to remind you guys. And have you read this, Mike?
I have not.
Everyone kept recommending this. Nina Infinity is one of the people who recommended it. It's excellent. I can't put it down. I recommend getting an actual physical copy because you might want to take a lot of notes. And if you do get a physical copy, get the one with the foreword by Michael Rechtenwald. That's the one I would suggest. So you guys still have time to get that book and join us for book club. And with that, I'm going to turn this topic over to my co-host, Mr. Chris. Do you want to tell us what we're doing tonight?
So there's something called Lord of the Rings or something I've heard about recently. It's a big controversy. I don't know what's going on with it.
Another
No.
show, yeah.
Oh, I wanted to talk about Lord of the Rings, but specifically talk about the source material and talk about J.R.R. Tolkien, his political views, his spiritual views, how that's influenced his writings, and how Amazon may or may not be continuing or disgracing his legacy. Because I know very little about Lord of the Rings other than the movies. I've watched all three of the trilogy. I didn't watch any of the Hobbit movies, but the trilogy I think is one of the best. No, I scratch it. It is the best movie trilogy in history. The director's cut of Fellowship of the Ring, I think, is one of the greatest movies of all time. And so I have huge respect and admiration for Peter Jackson and everyone involved in making those movies. But like I said, I don't know much about the source material. So I thought it'd be great to have people on who know way more than me about it. And we can get into the nitty gritty and talk about, what Amazon's doing with his work.
Oh.
You're muted, Keri.
You're muted, Keri.
I was going to say, well, first of all, does anybody here, does anybody like Rings of Power?
Because
I know when I announced
it's-
this, I had some
yeah.
people in the comments on Facebook and elsewhere that were like, I actually like it. And I'm like, okay, well, you should come to the chat and make your case. So no fans here of the Amazon.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
no.
I mean, I went ahead and watched a couple episodes just because that seemed like the fair thing to do. Rolling up to this, all of the media didn't really do it any justice in my eyes, but so I was pretty skeptical. Actually, I wasn't going to watch it at all because I really felt like it was stomping on Tolkien's legacy. But I went ahead and watched a couple episodes, the first two, and it wasn't good. I mean, I can go into detail with that, but it wasn't good, in my opinion.
So, Chris, do you want me to pull up one of these pieces to get into Tolkien's, like why his work is so timeless, why it's so impactful, or do you want Aranarth to explain why he feels like it's a departure from his work?
No, let's go into that. I want to hear more about that.
Well, so what is it that you love about Tolkien? I mean, you named your pseudonym based on Tolkien. So could you put that, could you articulate that in a soundbite? I'm kidding. Give me the elevator pitch on why you're a big fan.
Well, by his own admission, he was trying to create an escapist fantasy, right? That was so complete that you could go in, no questions asked, and not, and find no correlation to the real world. So, you would go to your work and do your work, and it's kind of sucky, and you come home and blah, blah, blah. And then you read, Lord of the Rings, and you get lost. And that was kind of the point, right? I mean, he had lots of other points, but that, to me, even as a kid, seemed like the point. And, that is not the case with the Amazon TV show. They're trying to make it modern and relevant to today, which is the exact opposite of what we want, or at least what I want, right? I want to be able to, tune into something or read something and be lost in that. So I think just like there's a lot, right? But that's probably the biggest benefit.
There's a piece here that you sent me, Chris, about fantasy, and whether fantasy can be myth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to pull this one up?
Yeah, you can pull that one up.
Okay.
I did a lot of research, found for this episode, and it was interesting learning that there was a lot of criticism towards Tolkien even before all the quote unquote woke stuff took over. Since its inception, that the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, you had numerous critics taking shots at him, people who were looking down on the genre of fantasy, who thought it was juvenile, people who even back then were saying that he had racial stereotypes, saying that the orcs were racist and that the dwarves were anti-Semitic. And a lot of them seemed like they were cloaking their criticisms behind something deeper, like they had some kind of disdain for Tolkien and his work, probably based on his anti-modernist views and some of the currents that kind of flow in the stories. And so I that's what I kind of wanted to get at, and looking up, some articles, and found this one that talks sort of about this. This one's a little bit more about his inspiration, the spiritual inspiration. And if you scroll down to, let's see, it's a little ways down. There's a paragraph. It's like a one-sentence paragraph that says, "So why is Lord of the Rings?"
There we go.
Yeah. So let's see. So I'll go ahead and read a little bit of this. So it goes, so why is Lord of the Rings like a very select few other works a cultural phenomenon? Is there any way that these works can be considered myth? I believe that Tolkien would have said yes, and his natural modesty notwithstanding, that indeed Middle-earth books are more than artificial or counterfeit myth. The declaration seems especially surprising given that Tolkien, and ultimately Lewis and C.S. Lewis, were devout Christians. The answer is found in the concept that Tolkien and his fellow Inklings called mythopoeia, literally making myth. In his book, The Inklings, biographer Humphrey Carpenter recounts a significant and now famous conversation between Tolkien and the then atheist C.S. Lewis. The two were walking along the colleges in Oxford on September evening in 1931. Lewis had never underestimated the power of myth. One of his earliest loves had been the Norse myth of Balder, the dying god. All the same, Lewis did not in any way believe in myths that so thrilled him. As he told Tolkien, quote, "Myths are lies and therefore worthless, even though they are breathed through silver," end quote. "No," Tolkien replied, "they are not lies." Tolkien went on to explain that early man, the creators of the great myth cycle, saw the world very differently. To them, the whole of creation was myth-woven and elf-patterned. Tolkien went on to argue that man is not ultimately a liar. He may pervert his ideas into lies, but he comes from God, and it is from God that he draws his ultimate ideas. Therefore, Tolkien argued, not only man's abstract thoughts, but also his imaginative inventions must in some way originate with God and must, in consequence, reflect something of eternal truth. And then last thing I'm going to read. When creating a myth, a storyteller is engaging in what Tolkien called mythopoeia. Can't say that. Through the act of peopling an imaginary world with bright heroes and terrible monsters, the storyteller is in a way reflecting God's own act of creation. Human beings are, according to Tolkien, expressing fragments of eternal truth. Tolkien believed that the poet or storyteller is then a sub-creator, capturing in myth reflections of what God creates using real man and actual history. A storyteller, Tolkien believed, is actually fulfilling divine purpose because the story always contains something of a deeper truth. Myth is filtered through the artist's culture, experience, and talents, but it is drawn from a deeper well.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny because that's very much like a philosophy I took when I started like doing writing and stuff. Is I believe I believe that if you're in contact, like for people that have like faith, and I think other people are just as capable of it, but the concept of like for people that do have faith and believe in a creator, if somebody created and fashioned the universe, then that person is the most creative being that has ever existed of all time. And to like be in contact with that being by deciding to create something of your own, like you have the potential of creating the most creative things as well. Like you're tapping into the source, when the idea is, well, I have to reflect, there's a lot of modern modernist attitudes in today's writing and today's movies and even books, in that we have to reflect the world around us. We have to reflect the modern world around us and what we're seeing and everything around us, which I think that can be influential in how you write stories, but it should never be the goal of your story is to reflect modern times. The goal of the story should be to tell a theme or a concept, because that was always the point of stories. Like the reason Jesus talked in parables was because if he knew that by telling a story with a theme or a principle or a concept in it, when those people hear that story, take in that story, and then come to their own conclusion of that story, what they walk away with from it will then take root inside of them, like permanently, because it's their own idea. Versus if you have somebody telling you what you should think or how you should feel, then those people have to decide whether or not that lines up with what they believe, or how that faces what they've been taught or trained to believe. And then a lot of times most people will just reject it. So you tell somebody, well, you should do this, a lot of people will just reject it. But if you can give examples or stories of why it's important, they'll take that in and it'll take root, and then they'll live that out in their lives, but it's one of those things that, like, good storytelling, great storytelling, like Lord of the Rings, even like the Chronicles of Narnia and stuff, they mean something to people, and they mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But the fact of the matter is, when you read these books, you walk away feeling something, walked away connected to this in something. Rarely have I ever heard anybody go, yeah, the books were all right, they're cool. Some people are like, they're not for me, which is fine, because not every type of storytelling is for everyone. But the general concept is, if you actually read the stories, you can't ignore the fact that the lore and the themes are there, and there's a lot to dissect, and there's a lot to learn from those stories, from the different characters, even from the world itself. So that's awesome.
Wow.
I really like that. Yeah.
I love that. That's kind of, you're making me think about a little bit about Jordan Peterson too, and how he talked about how some of the older Disney movies are so instructive in that way. They're almost like parables, because they're teaching you eternal truths and pointing the way, and they're also timeless in a way, like Pinocchio, which I hate that they're remaking it, because I'm like, it's perfect. Just watch the original. It's perfect. Right. But if you think of the most popular movies, I mean, it used to be that a lot of the times you would see that same theme of pursuing what is true, self-sacrifice for truth and what is right and good, like movies like Braveheart, like the kind of the same story that we like, told in different ways in different genres. Like you said, fantasy may not be for everyone. Maybe it's told in an action format or drama, but it's sort of that there's something there to what you're saying that's so, I think, profound. Somebody in chat said, what did I walk into? This is really deep.
The amount of work too. I mean, this is the thing. The reason Tolkien is as treasured and as honored and as respected as he is, I mean, yes, there are other writers that have built very grand, massive worlds around them with their stories, but there is almost no one that I can think of or know of that put in the level of work and imagination and creativity into Middle Earth as Tolkien. Like, I mean, he put so much work into it, and it's not just the books, but the books alone are enough. Just reading the trilogy, Lord of the Rings trilogy, there's so much going on in those books. But then you have the Hobbit, you have the Silmarillion, you have the appendices, and you have maps, and you have paintings and art from these different stories. I mean, there's so much going on. It's such a rich history, and it's a masterclass in world building in a way that not many people have ever done again. I mean, the closest I think we have to that level of popularity maybe would be like Harry Potter, because that generation had never seen anything like that. And the generation that was hooked by Harry Potter were a little bit young for the Lord of the Rings group, but then they all grew up and started watching Lord of the Rings and reading Lord of the Rings, So I think it's that there's something about the fact that he is one of a kind in his work. He was a master at what he did, and you have to respect the work that somebody puts into something like that. So
I that's why people are, and myself included, are so defensive about that lore, because the man put a lifetime into it, and then his son put his lifetime into it. So it's 2 lifetimes of great men in this story, and the lore is so deep you can't, like, I can't remember all of it, and you know, there's so much, right? And Amazon just said, nah, we'll just make our own thing.
We'll make it better.
We'll use some names and we'll hire some people who have, you know, some sitcom credits, and we'll get it done.
Yeah.
Right. What?
Well,
Yeah.
I think it shows the ability for mythology to elevate truth, and I think that's something that a lot of critics back then and now are reacting to, because it is a story that is about good versus evil, and I think you can see some of the currents from, you know, his Christian beliefs being reflected in that story. But that's ultimately something that I think a lot of critics, particularly the, you know, modernist and postmodernist types, look down upon. They looked down upon these stories that didn't subvert, that weren't cynical, that weren't full of irony, just works hard, that you know, didn't try to deconstruct society at large. And I think Tolkien just made a very classic black and white type story that reflected these eternal truths about good and evil and human nature itself. You know, that's something that's always stuck with me ever since seeing the movies and not being familiar with the source material before that, was how it betrayed human nature, that, you know, how easily corruptible, you know, we all are with power, and how much the characters in the story couldn't resist the power of the ring. And that's why I've always used the analogy of government being like the ring of Mordor, where you have so many people vying for that power because they want to use it to benefit themselves. And I think there's something great there, and I think that's something that I keep wondering if the Amazon series is going to deal with at all, because I try to be fair, I try to be objective. I don't want to bring my biases towards, you know, a lot of these shows, because with, you know, the woke stuff, it's easy to go, oh, this is going to be woke before you even seeing it. So I try to be fair, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing those themes. I'm not seeing the characterization, the depth to it. I'm not seeing character arcs. It's just it's not. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere ultimately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here the thing is, you know, I've been following this. Me and Josiah, who's my like one of my best friends, and we work together a lot on stuff and talk a lot about stories. And he's I know he was really busy tonight, but he's probably bigger. He's a bigger Lord of the Rings fan than I am. I won't say that he probably is. He is. He knows a lot about the lore and everything like that. And we've talked at nauseum about Lord of the Rings and stuff and how influential that was. And it probably influenced him more than it did me. I love the books, but I've read a lot of different authors and stories. And so I like things. I like things in the context of all the stories I've written, and I respect Lord of the Rings for that. But I think the concept of one of the concepts that they kind of went into before they started Lord of the Rings of Power, was this idea that they were going to have their own like Game of Thrones attitude. And there's a lot of people that compare Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones, not realizing that Game of Thrones was inspired by Lord of the Rings. And you wouldn't even have that without that. And that level of storytelling and depth is in Lord of the Rings well before it was in Game of Thrones. It was just, we saw Game of Thrones as a series, and so there was a lot more of it, and it stayed in the consciousness of people weekly for a lot longer. Whereas we had Peter Jackson's movies, you know, and you can watch those movies, and it's a lot to watch. But you know, having a series kind of influence you constantly can have that same effect on people, and it can kind of cause like mass. Like almost have like a mass appeal as well. But one of the things that Amazon went into this with is they had the idea that they wanted their own franchise. And if that's your attitude when you're handling Lord of the Rings, then you're not looking at it correctly. You know, Josiah shares this video a lot from Peter Jackson, where he said, you know, our goal was not to tell our own story. Our goal was to do our best to adapt Tolkien's story for the screen. You know, and it's not a perfect adaptation. It's not a shot for shot, but it absolutely captures the spirit of what Tolkien was doing. It captures the themes. I wouldn't say that any character, save maybe, in my personal opinion, Eowyn is like really a massive departure from the books. They stay very faithful to the concepts and themes, and even things that they had to cut out, like Peter Jackson was like, I don't want to cut it, but it just doesn't fit for what we're trying to do and stuff. Whereas that's not what Amazon was doing. They got the appendices. They said, we have the rights to this. We have the rights to these characters. So we want to tell the story that Tolkien never did. And you can't tell the story that Tolkien never did because Tolkien already told all of it. Now, if your idea is we're going to fill in the gaps on a story that we know of and in history that we know of, that's one thing. But the attitude should always be with a work of art that has already been pre-established. We're going to handle it with the level of care and honor that it deserves because of the previous work that has been put into it. And that's not at all how they did it.
They departed heavily from the lore. Just by having Galadriel do anything with a sword or be in charge of any army, they departed heavily from the lore just by doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that attitude even of saying, hey, you know, the idea that a woman with a sword is the most powerful thing we can come up with in imagery shows that they don't really understand what actual power is. And the Lord of the Rings is built around the fact that there is some power that exists that swords are completely like useless against. That and even the idea of a sword in Lord of the Rings, where you have like swords like that have a legacy, like Glamdring or Narsil or Sting. The idea was that these swords have a legacy behind them, and that legacy and that history kind of is what adds the power behind them. But at the same time, Sauron wasn't defeated with a sword; he was defeated by a hobbit. And friendship, and that kind of thing is what brought down the greatest evil. The sword was just a tool, but at the end of the day, tools are what caused this mess in the first place. You know, I mean, there's a lot of that in there, and Amazon doesn't seem to understand that. And the idea that this is supposed to be a younger Galadriel who's going to grow into the character we know, well, you're still missing the point, because elves don't develop like we develop. They're eternal beings that don't see the way that we see them. So if you're writing them with modern tropes in mind and writing them like you would write a character in today's stories, you failed, because she's not that. Galadriel can't be a human being. She can't be written like a human being, or else you've missed the point of what she's supposed to be. So
you actually wrote a piece about this, Aranarth. I just shared the link to your piece in the chat. It was called "In Defense of Galadriel." And you talked about how Tolkien wrote power, what power was like in Middle Earth, and how this is the way they're portraying it is different. Can you tell us, summarize what you were talking about in that piece?
Yeah, it's kind of like what Mike was saying there. They don't understand what Tolkien meant by power or magic, right? Magic for Tolkien isn't like Harry Potter. Right, it's a lot more elemental, earthy magic, right? And Galadriel was maybe the most powerful, or at least second most powerful to Fëanor, right? As far as like that kind of power, right? And she didn't really need a sword to do anything, but she also wasn't violent like that. She had. In the first stage, she was pretty headstrong. She wanted to, go and have her own kingdom and rule something herself. And in the second age, she did sort of rule Lindon a little bit and founded some other kingdoms before she got to Lothlorien. But she wasn't fighting or anything like that. Her magic was wisdom and knowledge, and her timelessness, right? And Peter Jackson did such a great job capturing that with Kate Blanchett that you could see, she was so powerful in that performance that she almost seemed untouchable, right? Like so magical that she glowed, right?
Yes.
She when she came onto the screen, everything else, he was really smart about how he filmed it. Everything else was dark, and she came onto the screen and just glowed. None of the other elves glowed, right?
Yeah.
Legolas was awesome, but he didn't glow, right?
Here's the image that you included with your piece, which just illustrates that, just how ethereal she looked compared to on the right. There's the new Galadriel who's like a man played by a woman.
Manspreading.
Really just has like a two-dimensional view of what is powerful, and for a woman, it's to be a man. So I don't really get that, and it's the opposite of what I personally think. And I really think that, you know, Tolkien's version of Galadriel, who I was defending, would completely obliterate Amazon's Galadriel just by looking at it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, there's just no comparison. So, yeah, I don't know. They don't get it. They obviously don't get it. They really don't get a lot of his work. In just the couple episodes I watched, I was confused half the time. And what is going on now? What did they do with Elrond? Elrond is a warrior.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like the most powerful Noldorian king ever. He's like the top king ever and the wisest, and goes head to head with Sauron and wins. He dies in the process, but he wins. Yeah. Right? So it's like, how could they, like, none of the casting worked. I don't understand what they were doing with the hair. Yeah. What was with the hair?
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I should say none. Very few of the elves actually look like elves. They had very modern haircuts. It was very, very odd.
Yeah. It really is. I don't get Elrond's hair. I don't get Celebrimbor's hair. Like, what did they do to him? What happened? Yeah. The dude is supposed to be an elf for one, right? So he really shouldn't have like saggy bits, right? No. You know, he's also, you know, a very powerful elf himself. I mean, he has fashioned himself after Fëanor, right? Who created the Silmarils to begin with. And I mean, he really should not look like that.
No. No. Well, and that's the thing, you know, Amazon touted this with the most expensive television show ever made. And so then you have to look at what has come before, what has existed before in front of us, whether it's on television, whether it's in film, and we have to compare those things. This show does not compare to Peter Jackson's films. And so, you know, the argument can be made, well, they're movies, and so it's different, and the way money works and stuff like that can be different. Okay, well, then, like, I will in this context, I will compare it to Game of Thrones and the quality of set design, you know, the quality of acting, you know, the fact that they cast people that look like the characters they were supposed to, all of that stuff. None of that is here. So it's like, okay, you threw all this money at it, but we're looking, and like, you know, you just said, none of the characters look like they're supposed to at all. Like, and it doesn't make any sense. There's such an attitude of like, well, we just did what we did. And sometimes it comes off very cheap and very chintzy. And, you know, the idea of they do a lot of what I call helicopter shots where they, you know, go over the landscape. And I'm like, yeah, Peter Jackson does that in the movies to give you a feel for how the scope of the world works. He didn't just do it to constantly show off where they were at. The concept was like, oh, this is the world, and this is how vast and wide the world around us is. And they literally in episode 2 do the Indiana Jones trail map. They're like, oh, we're going over here now, you know. And I'm like, what is this? Like, who looked at this and went, this is going to be honoring of Tolkien's lore. It's not even honoring of the movies, let alone actually getting a Tolkien, you know.
Well, in the second episode, they had Khazad-dûm, and I really expected a bit more, just a bit more. And
Yes.
they go to Durin's flat. He has
Yeah.
a flat. And it's like, like they're having dinner in his little apartment, and I'm like, this dude's a prince, and this is Khazad-dûm, like the greatest dwarven kingdom ever, and the dude's in like a little. It's about the size of this room.
Yeah.
Do that big helicopter shot, right, to show the interior, but then when they go to a character, a person, it's in a small little room. Like the room that they did the contest in is just a small, cramped little room. And I'm like, well, okay, where's the money? How come this isn't a giant, sprawling space like Peter Jackson did, right? When they went to Moria, it was huge. Everything was huge. And if you took one wrong step, you would fall to your death.
Yep.
And they didn't really do that.
No, not at all. No, and that's exactly it. There's the illusion of large and of big, and the illusion of grandeur, but none of it is actually really what it's supposed to be. Because then you immediately go to a spot that looks like a set, looks like it's on a set, acts like it's on a set. People move around it like it's on a set, instead of this feeling that like the world is large and big and bigger than the people that are in it. You know, I mean, like you could focus on two characters talking and have an intimate moment, but still show the vastness of a hall, the architecture of the dwarves. I mean, for the most part, Khazad-dûm, I mean, it has some really beautiful spots in it, but it also just kind of looks like a dirty cave. Like, and I'm like, that's not what the dwarves are about. You know, it never was, And to be honest, of all the things I've seen in the show, the dwarves were the least offensive.
Yeah. Well, I liked them the most as well, and it was still bad.
Yeah, and it was still bad. That's exactly it. It's like this is the least offensive thing about the show, and it's still not anywhere close to what it should be. And that's the part about it.
Costumes were cheap. Like, go watch The Hobbit and compare the dwarves from Under the Mountain, and compare their armor and just their regular garb to the show. Huge difference.
Yes.
And Khazad-dûm is the capital, right? So you would think that those dwarves would be decked out. Plus, it's like this is their heyday.
Yes. Yep. And 100%. And go ahead, Karen.
I've got another article pulled up here, Chris, that you sent me about the mythology. Did you think it's worth touching on this one too? This one talks a little bit about Norse myths and Christianity.
You don't have to. I mean, that one, it gets into some Christianity stuff on the later half, which is kind of similar to what we read earlier. But yeah, it starts off talking a little bit about how Tolkien was influenced by Nordic and Icelandic mythologies.
Yeah, it's really all about. This one's called, for anyone who wants to read it, we don't have to read through it, but I'm going to put it on screen just so you can see it and go read it yourself. And it's from a place called The Imaginative Conservative, The Mythology of Tolkien, Recording, Not Inventing. And what's interesting, because in this piece, it is talking about how he was mostly influenced by Norse myths and Christianity. What do you guys make of the fact that because they're getting a lot of criticism, they tend to be using the old playbook of saying, well, everyone criticizing us is racist or sexist. They usually pick one, and it seems like they've gone with racist. So everyone who's criticizing us is racist, and all the criticism is about race, which is not the case. Are you surprised they didn't say that it was a bunch of Christian nationalists who were upset at Rings of Power? That's another favorite punching bag lately.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think that it's too small of a spectrum. The idea is you have to cast as wide of a net as possible to try to diffuse as much damage as possible. Because if you can say, well, if you can tell the masses that the only people that don't like this show are racists and sexists, then people will go, oh, whenever I see criticism, I can dismiss it. Thing is, it didn't work this time. It's very apparent that it didn't work this time.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so at all. Because here's the thing: I can go on. If you go look at all of the YouTube videos where they release trailers for Rings of Power, not just in America, in Europe, in Brazil, all over the world, everywhere that Amazon released it, they were ratioed. They had significantly more dislikes than likes, and it wasn't just and like I said, if you could say, well, that's just American audiences, but it's not. It's European audiences. It's all around the world. These people were disliking these things. And then if you go look on, different social media, Twitter, there's always firefights on Twitter. So there's always going to be divisiveness on Twitter. But, typically like things like Facebook, they're an older audience who are not as, educated on modern things or like what's happening in the world, and they kind of a lot of times get their news from like news outlets and stuff like that. Even there, people are like, this isn't Lord of the Rings, this isn't Tolkien. It's because the audience that they were trying to reach, they thought were dumber than they actually were. You can't be I mean this in the best possible way, because I don't mean it to insult other fans of other properties, but you can't be dumb and be a fan of Tolkien. You can't be dumb and read Lord of the Rings. It's too complicated. There's too much going on to read those books and actually like read those books and know what's happening and actually comprehend what's going on. And so they reached an audience that had built a fervent, feverish, dedicated fan base well before there were movies, well before there were TV shows, well before any of that. And then when we got the movies had such a level of quality that they set another standard for how you adapt those works. So now you're going into that, and we have, Lord of the Rings video games that some of them are very good quality, and the ones that weren't, people didn't like. So we have a standard in a franchise that says, hey, this is what we expect from everything. This is where the franchise is at any given time. This is what we expect at least. And then Amazon went, well, we're going to give you this. And when they said, no, we don't want that, then they have to go with what they know, which is to dismiss as large of a swath of critics as they can. But it didn't work because the overwhelming masses were saying, we are not happy with this. We don't like this. And the people that do say they like this, people go, cool, you can like it, but it's not as good as what it should be. And a lot of people will admit that. They say, well, it's pretty, but the writing isn't very good. Or, well, Galadriel's kind of a weird, that's been one consistent thing that everybody has criticized is Galadriel. And she's the main character. So what does that say about your writing? That your main character is so unlikable, and she's considered one of the most powerful, one of the most like grand, amazing, incredible beings in this fiction, and nobody likes her. Even the people that are writing her don't really like her,
What?
And go ahead.
It's funny because I watched an interview with the actress that plays Galadriel, and she comes off as a very nice, warm, sweet person.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, like the way that her character is being written, the way she's being directed to portray this character that shows no vulnerabilities. There's nothing for us, the audience, to latch on to and to resonate with. Just this cold, stoic person who always seems annoyed with most people. Like she's better and more competent to them and knows that in her head. She thinks that is. And it just comes across so bad. And I don't understand what the writers are doing, because I'm trying to give them a benefit of a doubt. I'm like, are they going to have some arc? Are they trying to do a Robert Pattinson Batman type thing where they showed her, being so obsessed with getting revenge for her brother who was killed, that maybe it cost her something, but it doesn't really cost her anything other than her deciding not to go off into eternity or whatever. That's not a real cost. There's no depth with this character so far, and I don't know if there's going to be.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't Lord of the Rings, her character would be terrible.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't attached to Lord of the Rings. Her name wasn't Galadriel. It was just a fantasy TV show. It would still be panned. In fact, I think it would be panned harder. I think it would have lower ratings. I think this would be in the bin. The only reason that it's not is because it says Lord of the Rings, and Amazon is calling anyone who doesn't like it a racist.
Yes, 100%.
That's the only reason.
Yep.
I just want to put this super chat on the screen before I lose it and forget it. Pirate Tomsky, thank you, sir, gives us £5 and says, "Lore, what's that?" Amazon Ring of Power producers. Thank you, sir. Yeah. And then there were a couple of chats here. One of them was from the beginning, and it was about that piece you read from Chris and about the conversation between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. And Dan Traynor says that was just before C.S. Lewis regained his faith in Jesus. He said that he was helped by that famous walk with his two friends.
Yeah,
That's
I read
interesting.
that.
Which is beautiful.
Tolkien had a big influence on C.S. Lewis returning to Christianity.
Yeah.
And then just one other I wanted to highlight from Dan Traynor. He says, if you really want to get deep, read the books of the Bible. Yeah, but if Amazon did the books of the Bible, they would make Jesus a woman.
Well, when they do that, some big studio is going to do that.
Well, they did that recently. What was
The
it?
History Channel one, was it?
Which one?
Wasn't there like some History Channel miniseries, Bible miniseries a few years ago?
I don't know if it was on the History Channel, but yeah, it was a miniseries. Yeah, it was not very good. They were like, "Oh, it's big budget, and we're finally really doing it." And we had all these scholars and stuff, but like, it wasn't very good. You do one episode to talk about Moses, and like, you're like, "Wait a minute, that's like a huge story. One episode to cover that whole thing, really?" Go ahead, Keri.
There's one I can't remember, but Therese, if you're in the chat, can you remind us? There's one that's currently airing, I believe.
The Chosen.
Yes, she keeps recommending that.
I haven't watched the whole series, but I have heard The Chosen is probably one of the best depictions of Jesus anybody's seen, because they treat him like with like the deference that he should be treated with, but he's also a person. Like, he's interacting, and it's not just him spewing out the parables, but it's like actually him interacting with people and like actually like meeting people and interacting with his disciples. And everything I've heard about it is that it's a really, really, really well done show that actually talks about and deals stuff. So,
Jeanette
and there you go, completely audience funded. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. She says it's completely audience funded.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think a lot of people forget, like the concepts, in the Bible, I think it's something that happens a lot in Christian, productions and stuff is, well, how accurate to lore can we be? And I'm like, well, there's being accurate is important, because if you change certain things in the story and the Bible is written as historical context, then you change like sometimes the meaning of and the ideas of what these tales are supposed to be written about and what they're supposed to teach you. But also at the same time, the thing is, if you don't know how to write something, or you don't understand story, then you'll miss the important parts of what you're supposed to emphasize. And what I've heard a lot from The Chosen, that they emphasize the correct parts of the story, that what really matters about the core of who Jesus was, that's what's important. But yeah, we don't really have a whole lot of that. I think Prince of Egypt was probably the best one I've ever seen. It was pretty accurate, and they added some liberties, but for the most part, it's about, God and his people and Moses and his call to be this like, this beacon of freedom to his people, So I think that stuff is really cool, but, in the context of a larger context, you have to understand storytelling to adapt story. I think that Peter Jackson understood what Tolkien was trying to do, and that's why he was able to recapture the spirit of what Tolkien was doing. I don't think a lot of modern writers, and I don't mean this to be rude, I don't think a lot of modern writers have the capability to write these stories or to adapt these stories, because I don't think they understand them, and I don't even think they understand why they resonate with people. When I was younger, I didn't really understand, like when I didn't really understand Samwise. Like, he was not my favorite character, but like I know a lot of people that think he's their favorite character. But as I got older, I understood and had a lot more respect for the concept of a character who seems like a nobody, and he kind of gets like roped into this like story in a way that almost felt like an afterthought, but ends up becoming the most important person in the story. Like the Lord of the Rings doesn't work without Sam. It doesn't work without any of the other characters, but like Sam is so integral to that story because, like Tolkien said, he's one of the unsung heroes that we don't always hear about, but when we don't always realize carried a burden that he didn't need to carry, and did things in the story that no one has ever done. Like, if somebody was bringing that up the other day, I think somebody said he's the only person that's ever wounded Shiloh, ever. he's a hobbit, but it doesn't matter because it's not about his size or his stature. But those are themes carrying, weight. But today the idea would be, well, we have to make Sam as badass as possible and have him doing spins and flips and kicks and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't need to be that. The idea was like, he knew in that moment, like, I'm going to lose my friend if I don't fight this thing. And so he overcame his fear of being a hobbit. And at that moment, it didn't matter who was against him. He was going to fight them. Like, but that's a beautiful theme there. But today they don't understand that they equate badassery with like how cool you look when you do things. And so there's a lot of focus on how can we make it look cool versus how can we convey an idea. And that's something that's missing a lot from storytelling. So,
yes.
I don't think they even study older works of literature.
I don't think a lot of people do either. No,
I mean, a lot of them going to college and being taught these various critical theories and how to view things through the lens of gender or race and other things. Because even doing research for the show, there's so many articles about, Tolkien's, promoting white nationalism, promoting this and stuff. And it's like, it's basically any kind of major property, you can just fill it in those blanks and there'll be an article, multiple articles saying that this property and this creator were supporting patriarchy and anti-Semitism and all this other nonsense. It's
to the point where you guys, Mystery Chris has a game that we sometimes play. We're gonna do a theme song for it. It's like, is this racist? I don't know. I can't remember how the song goes, but you can look up anything with that word racist, and voila, there's an article on it, and anything.
Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Racist.
Yeah, mayonnaise is racist. Yeah,
Definitely.
but that's funny. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's really, I just think it's a lost art form. Or it's becoming a lost art form. I think that there are people now that are seeing it and realizing and waking up to the fact that without trying to rant, because I can rant for a long time. But I think that there was an idea that art became political in that, like, if you're not interjecting your message into your art, then you're not really making anything of worth. Instead of the idea that I'm telling a story and telling stories will bring people to conclusions and understandings about things. But for a little while there, cinema became entertainment for entertainment's sake, which is fine. Except that one of the things that can be of concern is that when it's entertainment for entertainment's sake, it may be devoid of any actual concepts or themes or messages. And so then the audience has to walk away with whatever they can extrapolate from it. So you have like popcorn cinema and blockbusters that don't really try to have any meaning. They just try to appeal to as many people as they can. And that becomes a problem too. So then when you try to say, okay, cool, I grew up on blockbusters, I grew up on films, so it's all about how does it look and how cool is it and all that stuff. And you go, cool, but we also need to have a message here. How can we interject this message into it? And your whole thing is spectacle and message. You have nothing to actually offer anybody.
That's exactly what it is. That's what because you were talking about how Samwise today, they would make him like all badass and stuff. Like it's all about what they showing off production value or skills or and spectacle, and then adding the message on top of it. But what you're talking about and what it sounds like what you guys are saying and what some of these pieces are saying that Tolkien did is write these universal truths that unite us across race, sex, gender, everything, because you're writing the human experience in this fantasy world, in this mythological world. And what the social justice people do in entertainment is different. And it's instead of telling a story that connects all of us, like the human experience, they divide us by focusing so much on the meaningless things. Like, this is the race of the person. I saw today headline in all the major press, SNL makes history by hiring their first non-binary cast member. Who cares? Who cares that she says she's non-binary? I mean, it's
that's
funny.
Your resume now, apparently, is like I would have loved to have seen the interviews for the people who would be writing for Rings of Power, and I bet it was thin. It was like, well, I'm this minority. You're hired. right? It's like,
Yeah.
I really feel like that's probably the case. Either that, or they wrote an AI, and the AI wrote the episodes. But they just plugged in parameters and said, we want this, 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 and this, and the AI just spit out a sheet with all of the data on it.
Yeah.
Right? Not a story. That's why you can't lock into the story, because there isn't any.
Yeah.
But I couldn't story. I watched 2 episodes, and so that was, an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes into the story. And at that point in Fellowship of the Ring, if I hadn't ever read the books, I would for sure know everything that was happening and where the story was supposed to be taking me, right? And you don't even know what is going on by the end of the 2nd episode.
Yeah.
To me, this seems like they're doing such a pitiful job at world building. I'm someone who's not familiar with any of the societies depicted in it, but they're doing a really poor job in establishing what these societies are, what their cultures are, what the values are, and how all this is going to be tested with the conflict that's occurring. And I think that's a reason. Like I think they're trying, but they're terrible at it, and that's what's contributing to it being so slow and so boring. I've seen a lot of people remark that it's boring. People are saying, bored of the rings. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I found myself, numerous moments, in the episodes I've watched, just being bored and wanting the episode to hurry up and end.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
Yeah, it is very boring. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying it was very boring, and it took a long time. I had to pause it and get up and leave and go do something else. Back, watch some more. Right, I wanted to get through it, but it was an act of willpower.
That's the worst. When you start doing your chore list in your head during a show you want to enjoy.
Or browsing your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it says something. I know me and you can absolutely sit through like the extended editions and love them.
For
it's not even difficult. It's like a treat.
It is a treat. We do that every year here. We have a big Lord of the Rings marathon, including The Hobbit, the whole thing, and all the meals. Like
that's
7
so cool.
For the whole day. It's crazy. And it's like a spectacle over here, right? And I mean, we totally get into it, and there's nothing else. No phones, nothing. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
And it has to be good to be able to do that. And I can't imagine submitting myself to, this TV show's Tender Mercies for that long. I would kill myself. It's terrible.
You guys, I just wanted to thank IMAV for the super chat, 1999. Thank you, sir. He says The Chosen needs to be understood for what it is, a dramatized telling of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. It is neither a replacement for Bible study, nor should it be relied upon as an evangelical tool.
Yeah. Which is good. I think we need more of that today. To be honest, if you want to see stories and biblical stories reach out to people, they need to be told in a way that is understanding of the idea that people need, and the thing that people need in storytelling is good stories, not the biblical. Like, nobody needs you to break down every name in Deuteronomy in the middle of a show. Like, that's not what we're asking for. We're asking for, what is the theme of this story? How can this message resonate with me today? Which is what Jesus was doing when he told these stories. Because if you actually study his stories, they were very, very relevant to the topics of that day and what meant something to people in that time. And they work today. They still resonate today. But the more you learn about the cultures of that time, the richer and deeper those stories Jesus was telling were. These people weren't just hearing a guy talk to them about a story. They were enraptured by this concept. And some of those stories were even controversial. I mean, like the story, like the prodigal son was a controversial story, and the themes that it was tackling and talking about to people and stuff. And that's what we should be doing today, is telling stories that can give concepts to people and themes to people and let people walk away with the idea and decide it for themselves what it means to them. Because only people can make those decisions. But even this show is telling you, it telegraphs for you what you're supposed to think and what you're supposed to feel.
It just tells you. It's like, this person's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just tell you. And
Absolutely.
that is the case for a lot of TV and movie these days. It's why I feel like somehow there's like this mastermind AI program being passed around that just makes all the shows because they're all the same with different costumes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all pushing the same ideology. Pirate Tomsky, thank you for the £10. Sorry, says, okay, we have $1 billion budget, 250 million on Lord of the Rings rights. Now you have 250 million show budget and a 500 million shill marketing budget. Go get it.
Yeah.
Jeffy B. Amazon.
Yep. And they had all of the articles about racism and misogyny ready to go. They had all these arguments in place, ready to go before the show was ready to roll out. It's why there was very little. If you actually look at the marketing for it, there was very little being shown in the trailers. They took forever to get to the trailers. The time it took from the teaser to the actual trailer to the second trailer was a long time. I think the last trailer for it came out like a month before it released, because they knew that the backlash was going to be astronomical, and so they were just playing damage control. But if you're playing damage control, why are you releasing it? Why aren't you saying like this isn't what we thought it was going to be? The thing is, we've seen multiple actors walk away from the show. We've seen multiple directors walk away from the show. We've seen literally the guy on Tolkien expertise. I don't remember his name now. It's Tom something, I believe. Walk away from the show, and he goes, no, they're not doing anything that is honoring of Tolkien here. And they're like, well, don't worry, we got our own experts, you know? Yeah. So
I heard Peter Jackson to consult on it, and then didn't call him back.
yeah, so they asked him about it, and he said, hey, if you want me to be involved, send me some scripts. And he goes, they never got a hold of me, so I don't know.
They
and
were
then the rumor,
send in those scripts.
what's that?
They were afraid to send him those scripts.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's no way they were going to send that to him, because he would have absolutely rejected him. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Mike, can you think of a time when this marketing ploy of blaming the fans has actually worked?
You know, it's worked to an extent with Marvel. Marvel's been really good at it, but part of that is because Marvel did actually, you know, for what it is, the MCU is not perfect, and it does not hit, it's not always hit. There's a lot of misses in the MCU, but the idea is they had built such a line of credit with audiences that people were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt when some of the things were lackluster. But like one that really comes to mind right off the bat was like Captain Marvel when it came out, because they immediately said, oh, you know, people that don't like strong women, they're misogynists, they're just blah, 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 blah. And at the same time that Marvel was out, we had a movie called Alita Battle Angel that came out. And Alita Battle Angel was like adapted from a manga, and a lot of people really liked that. I liked that movie. I didn't like Captain Marvel very much. I didn't think it was a very good movie, but all these like publications started releasing articles saying that Alita Battle Angel was the alt-right, you know, alternative to Captain Marvel, that Proud Boys and alt-right adjacent alt-right people liked it, that they were going to champion this movie, even though literally by the very metrics that they set for themselves. Captain Marvel is a movie about a white woman in the military, and Alita Battle Angel she was played by a Hispanic woman playing a Japanese character in like a Japanese manga. So by everything, the one movie is far more diverse, but who was running the marketing behind it? Disney. Mm-hmm. So they're going to talk about that movie and run that movie down, and then, you know, say everything they can about that, and then tell everybody they were, you know, racist, misogynist and stuff. And because the MCU had just come off of the Infinity War, it was at the height of its popularity, people bought it because they said, well, why wouldn't you like this movie? It's the MCU. They make great movies all the time. So most audiences went and saw it, not realizing it, and didn't think about it again. Didn't give it a second thought. I've never once heard a single person tell me, oh yeah, every year I go back, or all the time I go back and rewatch Captain Marvel. It came and it went like nothing. It just like a snap, it was gone. And she can't even, Brie Larson, the movie was supposed to be popular, made over $1 billion. Brie Larson can't even get a sequel. Her sequel is like set, like it's still like 6 years out. and she doesn't even know if they're actually. It's not even her. She's not even the main character in her own movie anymore.
Oof.
So what does that say about somebody that you believed in so strongly that you had to get a sequel out? You know what I'm saying?
That was
Like,
a tough movie,
but
dude. That was a
what's that?
tough movie.
Oh yeah,
Because she's so wooden in the movie, and then the
Yeah.
writing is so flat,
Yeah.
right? So we got this flat writing and this kind of a boring story with kind of a boring actress, right? It could have been good. I actually like. Not everybody agrees with me, but I liked the first Wonder Woman. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, I love the first Wonder Woman. Yeah.
Yeah, the second one was horrible, but the first one was really good, I thought.
Yeah.
And, you know, Gal Gadot is a pretty decent actress, at least for that role. So, I don't know, like, I was kind of hoping Captain Marvel would be good. I was a Marvel fan right up until that period.
Yeah.
But that movie was kind of like the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
For me, liking
Absolutely.
stuff, because it really went downhill after that.
Yeah, it really has. But that's an example of where the marketing actually worked for it, because it made $1 billion. You know, but Wonder Woman also made a lot of money. It made at the end of it all, it made like a close to $1 billion. It didn't make exactly $1 billion, but Marvel was like, hey, first female-led superhero movie that made $1 billion. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Look at what we did, guys. You know, and that was kind of the beginning of them using that marketing tactic. Now it hasn't worked as well for them recently, but it's still the same kind of concept. I mean, they're doing it with She-Hulk now. They know what the playbook is. Everybody that doesn't like She-Hulk is a misogynist, and they hate women. And now the new argument is, well, this wasn't made for you. I'm like, no, Marvel makes their stuff for everybody. It is supposed to appeal to the biggest, broadest audience it possibly can. It's why they purposely cover up, you know, black faces on their posters when it goes to China, because they know that Chinese audiences don't respond as well to black characters. I mean, they play the entire book to appeal to as many people globally. Was that?
I said, of course they do. It is about money. It's just about money.
Yeah,
I think it's not as effective. Well, one, because we've seen the playbook before, and also because so many people have woken up in the past few years, and people are getting, I think anyway, the sense I get is that more people are getting over the fear that's been holding them silent from criticizing, like the accusation of, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a transphobe, you're all these things, they use it so often and for such ridiculous things that it doesn't hold. It's not as magic anymore. Speaking of magic, those words aren't as magic anymore.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the audience ratings on things like YouTube and Rotten Tomatoes and Amazon, I mean, they're having to go in and turn off comments and remove the downvote, because the audience is so vocal now in saying no, like, not buying it.
Yep. And the thing is, like, we'll probably never, I don't think we'll ever see art that is universally praised and loved like some art has been, at least not for a while, because of that, because audiences now have more power than they ever have before to tell you what they think about your stuff. And there's a lot more feedback, and there's a lot more room for echo chambers to form very quickly about your art and about your stuff. And if you get a bad reputation for something, or somebody says something bad about something you've done or whatever, there's an audience that is going to hear that person or hear those people and just go with that regardless of whether it's true or not. So, you know, I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to go into people that are doing art for art's sake and actually putting the work into it, and also going, okay, you know what? I don't think we'll be able to get the universal love that we used to, because audiences are actually kind of trained now to want blockbuster films over good art, you know, in artsy movies or movies with a theme. They've been trained to not want to hear a message or not want to see a message, because that's not what's important. What's important is how cool is it, how big is it, and how crazy is it, you know? But at the same time, you know, you see things that are like blips, like what happened with like Top Gun and how massively popular that movie was.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it shows that there's definitely room for it there, but you have to you almost have to train audiences again to show them what's important and remind them why they like movies in the first place. Because the thing is, nobody in their right mind will go, well, I like racism, I like misogyny. Nobody's saying that. But if you say that it's bad, like, well, only people that don't like this are misogynist, racist. Well, I don't want to be a racist. I'm not going to be a misogynist. And then so you hear what a lot of people have been saying lately is, listen, I don't go to movies to care about the story. I just go to be entertained. It's like, okay, yeah, but the thing is, you're part of the entertainment is the story. Like,
being moved, like having something that connects with you. And yeah, I think it's the same thing is happening in music. I saw a meme today about music. I can't describe it. It's one that you have to see visually. But anyway, the gist of the meme was that audiences have been trained to just want this repetitive algorithm driven kind of music. And then when they, they're not searching out, they're not looking for the stuff that's really creative and inventive and takes a lot of time and effort on the behalf of musicians. They're just sort of trained to get this Olive Garden version. But I think you're right that things break through, like the Top Gun movie. I just saw it. I loved it. It was like, this is all the old school movie making, the eternal, the timeless themes of, someone rising to the challenge, brotherhood, overcoming adversity and malice towards one another, and coming together for the common good. And I think people loved it for that reason. It's like if you're eating Olive Garden all the time, you've gotten trained to love Olive Garden, but then if someone serves you like a authentic Italian dish, it's got to be like, wow, I didn't even know I was missing this. This is delicious. What is this? Or the first time I drank raw milk, it was like that. Like, what have I been drinking before?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got trained to like that other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% it. Is you get trained to like things that are not great or not good, and then movie analyzation and movie like discussion has almost become a lost art form because of how quickly it'll devolve into name calling or in defense of the message. So
yeah.
What do you think about this idea that, I've heard some people say, and I've been thinking about it lately, is this idea that good art or movies can't come out of these corporations they're relying heavily on committees to test certain ideas, to try to market towards tons of different demographics, and they end up making products that satisfy no one because they're too broad. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, and there's a lot of people who think that the current model of Hollywood right now is not set up to produce a lot of the classics that we're used to, because we can talk all night about classics from the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, look at how many of these franchises that came out around those times, Star Wars, Star Trek, so many others that, are still popular, that still resonate with people, that still have a following, but the modern incarnations of them are awful. And there's not a lot of alternatives coming from the mainstream that can rival the, I can't think of the word, but it can't rival the grandness and the effect that something like, a Star Wars had.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is Star Wars was Star Wars, and you'll never have another Star Wars. But because Hollywood is designed mostly around making money, the hope is always to find the next Star Wars. It's just like Game of Thrones is super popular, so it's how can we find the next Game of Thrones? Lord of the Rings. Now, I will say this about Lord of the Rings. Everybody knows you can't be the next Lord of the Rings, and so there's almost this understanding that, like, setting out to be the next Lord of the Rings, you're going to fail. The only thing that was close, that had that same level, was when Disney and I think it was Fox were trying to do the Chronicles of Narnia movies. But listen, I love the Chronicles of Narnia movies. They're not on the same level as Lord of the Rings. It's just not. I love those books. I grew up with those books. I read those books to my kids, everything, but it's not on the same level. It's just not even close. And I don't mean that as a rude thing for people that love those books. It's just, the idea is once that cat is let out of the bag, you can't ever get it back in the bag again. So the idea is with art, you should be constantly, I wouldn't say innovating, but you should be constantly developing and growing with art. Art should constantly be evolving and changing and coming up with different ways to say the same, to address the same themes. And it's like,
Eternal truths.
yeah, it's like with what Keri was saying with music. Like, you wonder, well, is there going to be a day where we can't make any new music? Well, no, because music is infinite. But like, look at how we started with music with, Beethoven and Bach and all these guys. And somebody would say, well, some of modern music isn't the same thing. But what will happen is good music from now, actually good quality, well done music that people have put their heart and soul into, will be discussed one day like Beethoven and Bach. There will be people that do that. There will be people that see that. It's a constant thing with caring about art in the first place, is that you'll grow as an artist. You can see how, a movie maker started to where they finished their careers, very different places, because they continued to grow and change and develop, and learned a way to hone their craft, or decided to go in a different direction with what they wanted to make. I mean, it's a natural part of art. In creativity is to constantly grow and change. And I think we're in a growing stage right now with art. I think we're at a crossroads where I think movies, a lot of people say, like, talk about like superhero fatigue. I think superheroes as a genre it can be infinitely done if you do it correctly, but there was a formula to it that people started to get used to. And so now the fatigue is people are seeing the same things constantly talked about and constantly shared and constantly addressed. And so then everybody's looking around going, okay, well, what's next? And so I think that we're at a crossroads where there's going to be a group of smaller, lesser known people that come up with stories that haven't been seen or haven't been told in a long time, that'll tell those stories, and that'll set the next wave of set off the next wave. But I think the day of the Hollywood blockbuster, honestly, is probably done. I don't think Hollywood can recover from where they are now, because they didn't change with the times fast enough. First of all, the times changed quicker than anybody can adjust to. When I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones, and now my cell phone can literally do everything that a computer from 1990 couldn't dream of doing. I mean, like, we have capabilities we never did before. The fact that we're sitting here on YouTube talking to an audience, and like, this was something that wasn't done 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, it really wasn't being done. So the thing is, too, Hollywood did not change with the times. And so the only answer to that is to adapt or die. And I don't think that they have time to adapt anymore. I just don't think they can. I think it's too big of a monster. It's too big of a beast. And it was too reliant on the old formula to change. So I think the answer only is for it to die and something to take its place and rise up. But I think the answer to that will be communities of people making good art, but doing it within a community that protects the art that is being made. So,
well, it's so interesting to bring this back full circle to one of the topics from the beginning is I didn't know that The Chosen is audience funded, but that's exactly what it sounds like you're talking about, is people, coming together and making their own alternative content, alternative to the machine.
Yes.
Which is what you and Josiah Rises are.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Yep. I mean, Rip is a better example of who's doing it, because he actually did it, and made $3.5 million on a comic book.
In comic books.
Yeah. But that is the answer. Because then if you want good art, it lives or dies by the audience's hand. And that is something that Hollywood has never really... Hollywood has always lived or died by the audience's hand, but they've had enough money to survive when they have made a mistake, or when they have failed, or when the audience didn't respond. And because they've gotten so good at manipulating people, they'll tell you how wrong you were for not doing it. And they don't do it in obvious ways like, well, you're dumb, or look what you did. What they'll do is they do things like calling a group of people that didn't like the movie racist or misogynist, so that people will continue to go to the theaters and see things. But when you have an age or a time where people are struggling financially, or you have a time where now streaming has become so big because it was such a cash cow. And now people are staying home to watch movies or rewatch old movies or be introduced to things that happened before. Now people don't want to go see your new stuff if it's not a draw to you. And because Hollywood, and if Hollywood doesn't adapt to that, which it won't because it hasn't, you'll have people like, yes, me and my friend Josiah starting a production company and going, okay, listen, guys, we're going to do what we can and we're going to put together what we can, but it is based on what you guys want and how we can give you what you want, and so it lives or dies by the audience's response instead of us going to, like Hollywood used to. Well, here, if this movie follows this formula, we'll give you $150 million to make the movie. And regardless of whether it's a good movie or not, if it follows the formula that we know, then here you go, then we'll definitely sell it. And I say that from experience because when I was trained how to write scripts and how to write screenplays, I was given a book, and I don't knock the book because it has some really great ideas in it, but I was given a book and I was told, this is the book that you read, and this is the formula you follow if you want to write a blockbuster movie. There is no other answer.
Which book was it?
It's called Save the Cat.
Oh, okay.
I've heard a lot of
because I was told if you walk into a room like a Hollywood producer, and you don't know the terms of Save the Cat, and they ask you about it, they'll just throw your script in the trash because they'll think that you don't know what you're talking about. Because somebody found the perfect formula that worked for Hollywood, and if you don't know it, then you can't be in on the game. But now that's changing because now we don't have to follow those formulas because things like, like if you go to Japan, like with manga or anime and stuff like that, it does not follow traditional Western storytelling. It doesn't follow the 3-act structure. Sometimes there is no act structure. It's just a story about a guy going to get groceries from the store, but it's the themes and the concepts in that walk to the grocery store that like actually hook people. Studio Ghibli is a really good example of that. They make great art, but they don't follow traditional storytelling methods because the idea that there's only one way to tell good stories is ridiculous. It's absolutely foolish. But the idea that themes are how good stories are told is timeless. So, yeah.
Well, plus I think Hollywood is like, they're not even, that book would have to be rewritten today to like transition the cat or something because they don't even follow a lot of some of those rules, Yeah. It's like,
that's really good though.
Tara T, thank you for the soup chat. $10. She says, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I'm heartened by my fellow fans and how all of us little guys, like the hobbits, are defeating the Dark Lord Bezos.
There you go.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
There was one more here, guys, if you don't mind. Quick second. Oh, there were two from Pirate Tomsky. Says, Mike, you bigot. If you don't love Women King, you're the worst person alive ever.
I know.
I thought it was Woman King. You're adding women to it.
Oh, yeah. It's the Woman King. Yeah.
Kings.
And then he also says, Keri, great hat. The person who bought you that is obviously a legend. He is. Pirate Tomsky bought me this hat.
That's awesome. I love that.
I think that's it. There were a couple of others that were not super chats that I wanted to. Oh, one was from Tara T. She said they would make Samwise Frodo's lover.
Yep.
Yeah, probably.
100%. Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you guys too long. We have about half an hour left, unless you have to leave earlier.
I'm good.
Cool. Chris, what do you think we should do? I've still got a couple articles queued. I've still got some videos queued. From among those things, what should we do? And I also have a fun game for us to play.
Let's start getting into some fun stuff.
Ooh.
You've got your audio problem that you sometimes have. It sounds like it's back.
No, that's because I'm using my laptop today. That's why.
Oh, no.
I'll be back.
Okay. I'm going to queue up a quiz game then.
Oh, boy.
While we wait.
I appreciate you guys listening because I know I can rant and talk a lot. So
no, that was excellent. That's why I wanted you and Aranarth here because I felt like I want people who are very familiar with the series and can speak to exactly what you're talking about, the eternal truth in the storytelling.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, like one of you, I forget, it doesn't matter which genre it is. It doesn't have to be fantasy. But I think the human soul responds to certain themes and certain messages and not like these overt moralistic rules. It's almost like rules that they teach, that they try to teach through in the woke programming. Welcome back, Mystery Chris.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There.
Excellent.
Crisp, smooth. Also,
Okay.
I do have to say, by the way, this setup is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, and it looks so comfortable. That's the thing I'm like more drawn up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks so comfortable. Because like the Iron Throne does not look like a comfy thing to sit on. That looks comfortable. Like,
Yeah. Peter actually in the chat says,
This became our living room after we were done. We have a normal living room, but the kids sort of took it over. And so we come out here after work, and this is where we are most of the time.
that's awesome. I love that.
it's so comfy.
But there's a bar right here, and then behind the bar, behind a hidden door, is a TV. So we can lift up the door and watch the TV here in the chairs. And then, you know, if you want a drink, you just walk to the bar and get a drink.
That's so cool.
Do you have Lord of the Rings themed drinks?
Cider and mead, beer.
Close enough.
Yeah, beer.
And he's got beer stein. Like I've been there, and I have to say, it was a room for great cozy conversation.
That's so cool.
Peter in the chat says that room looks so cozy. I'm imagining myself in it, and I feel great. Okay, so I've got one more super chat before we start playing quiz. You guys, we're going to do a quiz game. So if you are Lord of the Rings fans, feel free to get out your notebook and pen and paper and take score and see if you can beat these guys, because we're about to play a game. But Jeanette, $20. Thank you, Jeanette. She says, great discussion tonight, guys. I read Tolkien as a kid and just rewatched all the movies this summer, so this has been fun. My 4 kids have all loved Tolkien as well, so my job is done. LOL.
There you go.
Thank you, lady. Okay. So I figure the 3 of you, I'm just going to read these questions and we'll go one by one. And then if we get tired of it, we have a second game. The first game is, there's 2 games. The first one is a trivia game. And the second one is antidepressants or a Tolkien character.
That's amazing.
Should we start with that one? That one sounds fun.
That does sound fun.
It's hard. It's a hard one.
Is it really?
It is. It is.
Oh dear.
Are you going to play since you've already played this one?
I did okay, but the names are so obscure. It's really difficult. It's funny how, and most of it's like Elvish names or Valar names, and they, you know, the antidepressants sound a lot like those. So it's tough.
Okay, so since you've already played Aranarth, maybe do you think you should play again, or will that not be fair?
No, it's fine. You guys can play, and I'll just laugh.
Okay, so we're just this round, and then we'll do another round with the trivia questions. So this is just going to be Mystery Chris versus Epic Mike, and I'm just
dear.
I'm gonna lose.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do well in this either. So.
We're gonna start with our guest, Epic Mike. Here we go.
All right.
Desriel.
That's Lord of the Rings name.
Oh no!
Oh, no.
Whoa.
You already got the first one wrong. I am
What is it?
deep.
Sold under many brand names, it is used to treat major depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, and with other medications, alcohol dependence. It is taken by mouth. Common side effects include dry mouth, feeling faint, vomiting, and headache.
Oh dear.
This is going to be a good education for just how many medications there are for depression.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Mystery Chris. Sildenafil.
Well, I mean, given that the one before was an actual antidepressant, part of me wants to say Tolkien, but I'm going to still go with antidepressant.
Antidepressants. Correct.
All right.
Sold as the brand name Viagra, among others.
That's amazing.
I think we know what that one does. Okay, here we go. Mike, Orphan.
I think that's an antidepressant.
Oh no!
Oh my gosh.
Oh, whoa.
No. I'm 0 for 2 right now.
He was one of the 3 wardens in the northern border of
Lothlorien.
okay.
Yeah.
Lothorian, met by the Fellowship as they entered the
I
Golden
should
Wood.
have known that. I feel bad.
Do you think like Big Pharma just like reads Tolkien and is like, hey, let's make something similar? It kind of sounds like this for his name.
Probably.
Okay. Okay, here we go. It's your chance to pull ahead. We're 0-0 so far. Here we go, Mr. Chris. Celebrian. Wait, no, did you get that one? You did get that one before, Chris.
Yeah, he's
right?
up. He's up on new one.
You're up one. Okay.
Yeah.
Celebrian.
I'm gonna go with Tolkien character.
Correct.
I actually knew that one. Dang it! I'm so mad. I was like, I do know.
I have no idea who this person is.
Elf lady of you say it, Mike.
Lothlorien.
Lothorian, the daughter
I'm
of
not probably not pronouncing it great either. So
Celeborn and Galadriel. As the wife of Elrond, she was also known as Lady of Rivendell.
Yep.
That one sounded like an antidepressant to me.
that's amazing.
Celebrian. Okay, here we go, Mike. Elendil.
I'm pretty sure that's Tolkien.
Correct.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
I was pretty sure that's what. Yeah.
I was gonna be sad if you got that one wrong, Mike.
Yeah, I would have been too because I was like, I know that name. So yeah. That's awesome.
Elendil the Tall.
Yep.
Okay, Chris. Sirdan.
I'm still gonna go with Tolkien.
Correct.
Yeah.
I knew that one too. Dang it.
I'm
I'm gonna get the next one wrong now because they're gonna be like,
He was a Sindarin elf, one of the wisest and most foresighted of the elves.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay, here we go, Mike. Clidial. Are you laughing at my pronunciation?
This is a funny name. It's a funny name.
I think that's Tolkien. I'm probably wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Tolkien.
Oh no!
Wow.
Yeah, see?
Oh.
You know what got me? It was a little yeah.
The
was
little
the E.
hash.
Yeah.
Methoxamine, previously sold under the brand names Clidial and Gerdixel, is an atypical antidepressant.
Yeah, they're stealing names from Tolkien. This is what it is. Like, wow.
I bet somebody's named their kid this.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Okay, here we go, Chris. Bilbo.
I wonder.
Oh
That's a
man,
hard
come
one.
on.
That's my goodness. Let's go with Tolkien. Why not?
Even I know that one. That's not easy one.
That's too
Bilbo
easy.
Baggins. Come on. Okay, Mike. You got to get an easy one.
I know, right? I'm not doing very well.
Cymbalta.
That's the antidepressant. Yeah. Ask your doctor if Cymbalta is right for you. Yeah.
Sure, my doctor know.
I think if Cymbalta were in Lord of the Rings, if Cymbalta were a Lord of the Rings character, what would Cymbalta be? An elf?
That'd probably be a human.
A human.
Yeah. Like a human, like a queen or something. Yeah.
Okay, next one. So we're currently at Mystery Chris has 3, Epic Mike has 2.
Okay.
Okay, Chris. Narvi.
Sounds like an antidepressant.
Oh no!
Really?
I actually knew that one, yeah.
He was.
See, I know all the names that he's been getting.
You keep getting antidepressants.
Yeah, I think it's trying to tell me something. Yeah.
Okay, Epic Mike. Edronax.
That's a antidepressant.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sold under the brand name Edronax. Gosh, there's a lot of antidepressants. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris. Narmacil.
It's got to be antidepressant. It ends with "sil." It's got to be antidepressant.
Oh no!
Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong.
Narmacil was the 17th king of Gondor after the death of his father.
I don't believe it.
Wait a minute. Did Mike get a point on the previous one?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so we're tied. We're 3-3.
Oh snap!
Let's do maybe a few more of these and then since we're tied. Okay. So this is for you, Mike. Elrond.
That's Tolkien. Oh no!
No!
I'm dying right now. This is killing me. Because I didn't even think like Elrond, but I'm like the Anon sounds so very Tolkien. This is so bad. I'm so bummed out right now.
By the way, listen to the other brand names of this one because it all sounds like Tolkien. Noxapitaline. The brand
yeah.
names are Ajadal, Elranon, and Nojadal. They all sound
That's
like
awesome.
Tolkien.
That's awful.
Okay, Chris. Azafin.
Dang it. As a Finn. Let's go. Let's roll the dice. Go Tolkien.
Nope. Approved in Russia for the treatment of depression, introduced in the late 60s and still used today. You guys are still tied. We're going to do one more round. Mike.
All right.
Nardil.
Sounds super familiar. Pretty sure it's an antidepressant.
Okay, let's see. Correct.
Ha!
Phenylazine, a non-selective and irreversible monoamine. I can't read these words. Let's move on. Okay,
Yeah, they're
Chris.
just throwing out words now. Yeah.
They're throwing out. I did see something funny in the chat go by. Where is that? Oh, Greg the Baritone says, my favorite Tolkien character is Alanon. Okay. Here we go. We got to break this tie. It's your turn, Chris. Aristor.
I'll go Tolkien.
Correct. Woo-hoo-hoo.
All
He's the
right.
chief counselor of Elrond's household. So you got it. We're 4-3. Should we stop there?
I mean,
Do you want
I'm
a
fine with
chance?
stopping.
You're
I
fine
mean,
with stopping?
Somebody in chat said we're tied at 4.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah.
Oh shit. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
It's okay. Listen, Keri's like, I just want this to be over. This is sad.
Oh, yeah, it
Watching
is.
these guys try to figure out these fake names. Like,
We're gonna break this tie and then we're gonna do a couple of the trivia ones.
all right.
I think. Okay. Okay, so speed round. This one is for you, Mike.
Okay.
Sentiment.
That's an antidepressant.
Correct. 5. Okay, Chris. Amantadine.
Go Tolkien.
Oh no,
Son
you
of-
lost.
No. Stupid.
No, you lost the whole game.
Dude,
No.
These names are so bad. Oh, that was brutal. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was kind of funny though.
Yeah.
I told beforehand. I told Aranarth I played one similar. If you guys want to look it up, that was really fun. And it was is this a famous composer or pasta? And that
Oh
was
my
hard.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Okay, and then wait, I've got a couple of trivia, and I think I want to make sure Arnath gets to play. She's so deep into Tolkien, so I'm gonna put up a couple of these, and or Mystery Chris, do you want to play this round?
That's all right. I'll let them because I don't know nothing.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Arnath and Epic Mike. And we'll just do a few of these. And I think there's some movie ones related that are thrown in as well. Okay, here we go. We'll start with you, Aranarth.
Yeah.
He is Frodo's loyal friend who journeyed with him from Middle-earth to Mount Doom.
Sam?
Yes. So I think you could play this, Chris.
I was gonna say they just gave like the song. They're like, "Who's that guy?"
I think you can play this. If you're playing at home, guys, don't be afraid. I think you, although it does seem to get harder as you go on. Okay, Mike, which actor played Samwise Gamgee?
Oh, Sean Astin.
Correct.
He was Rudy.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Aranarth. How many rings of power were made for the elves, dwarves, and men?
Let's see. There's 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, and 9 for men.
Yes.
Nice. I would have messed up on the dwarf. I didn't remember the dwarves.
Very nice.
I
I'm so
have
glad
a
I didn't get that one.
that. I have a secret to that. My it's what the heck? 1973, right? My birthday is 1972. It's 1 year after that.
Oh,
So I
okay.
cheat.
Oh, that's
how you-
fair. It's a
You
good way of
have
doing it.
a memory trick.
I have a memory trick. Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Which are referred to as the two watchers that form an invisible barrier that couldn't be passed through?
Oh my gosh! Wow.
What was that again, Keri?
Which are referred to as the two watchers that form an invisible barrier that could not be passed through?
Watchers.
I actually don't know.
Do you know that, Aranarth?
Two watchers that form an
Two
invisible.
watchers is capitalized.
I'll just put it in the chat.
This is in Mordor in the book, but yeah, Sam has to get by him. But man, I can't remember the name.
Did
Someone
somebody in
put
the chat say it?
Oh yeah, they put it in the chat. Yeah.
What is it?
So the answer I have here is carved statues on the entrance to the Cirith Ungol Tower.
Yeah, that's what it is. I don't know what the name is though.
It
Oh,
said
that was
Minas Morgul.
Minas Morgul.
I was in front of Minas Morgul, but
Yeah. Yes.
That's all. Oh, that hurts.
Ah,
That's the
okay.
book. Yeah.
That one sounds pretty detailed, though.
That was. I knew it was going to get like a tough one. Now the next one's going to be like, yeah. What's our Elrond's daughter's name?
It's even worse. It's even worse. Look at what Aranarth gets.
Oh my god!
He can't see it. Aranarth, your question is: the Lord of the Rings films are based on a novel written by which author?
What? Oh my god! What?
They were just like,
Obviously. Come on.
they threw one at like the Tolkien experts. Like,
I'm just gonna throw this one away. We're gonna give you a real question because that's disrespectful to you and your knowledge. sir.
Dude, no kidding.
Okay, we're gonna give you a real question.
I almost said Frank Herbert in defiance.
Okay, here's your real question. Who
All right.
released King Theoden from the spell of Saruman, which caused his appearance to make him look much older than he is?
Gandalf.
That was an easy one too.
That was
Man,
also
they just
easy.
were like softball. No, it's okay.
Yeah, and that's definitely a movie question. That's not what happens in the book.
Oh. Okay, Mike. Which Ent carried Pippin and Merry through Fangorn Forest?
Treebeard.
Treebeard, correct.
Yeah, that was an easy one, but yeah. Wow.
Maybe it's doing a couple easy ones after those hard ones.
Yeah, they just like the tower ones. I was like, that's brutal. Like,
Okay, Aranarth, how did Farmer Maggot protect the Bamfurlong farm from people?
He had a dog. How did he protect it from people?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know if I should give you this or not. It says by placing 3 trained dogs called Wolf, Fang, and Grip.
yeah. I mean, he had dogs, but that's it.
I would give him that one. I think that was.
I'm gonna
Anything.
give you that one. 4. Okay, Mike. What is Bilbo's relation to Frodo?
Oh, he's his uncle. Or
Ooh.
isn't he his? Yeah, he's his great uncle.
It says his second cousin.
Oh, second cousin. Wow. That's
Man,
my
I'm
fault.
not wrong too, actually. 'Cause I would have said uncle as well.
Maybe this quiz doesn't know what it's talking about. Chat way
That's
in.
okay.
Maybe he's both.
Maybe we don't know what we're talking
Yeah.
Okay, Arnarth. Who was sent to Rivendell by Denethor to find answers about a dream he had.
I'm guessing Boromir.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so I looked this up real quick. Apparently, he's referred to as Frodo's uncle, but he's actually his cousin.
Well, that's not really fair.
Yeah,
I
Frodo is the
mean-
Hobbit of the Shire who inherits One Ring from his cousin, described familiarly as his uncle.
I think I'm going to give that to you, Mike, because he's called both. That's not really fair.
That's brutal. That kind of hurts, though.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for you, Mike. In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, who said, "I would rather share one lifetime with you than face all the ages of this world alone"?
Oh, that's what's his name? Wow, Arwen to Aragorn.
Correct.
Yeah. Somebody said Liv Tyler. I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, in the movies.
For you, Aranarth, what marks the end of the Third Age?
The end of the Third Age is the defeat of Sauron.
Correct. The Third Age ended when Sauron is killed after the One Ring is destroyed. And for you, Mike, what is the name of the mountain where the Master Ring was made?
Mount Doom?
It's Castle Grayskull. I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
I was going to say, Castle Grayskull from He-Man?
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Correct. Sorry. No, I was trying to think of the one really fast. But I couldn't remember it. Where's the one where Skeletor lived?
That's Castle Grayskull. Yeah.
Castle Grayskull.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I just thought that was really funny.
No,
Like,
Snake
He-Man.
Mountain. It's
Is it
called
Snake
Snake
Mountain?
Mountain. It wasn't it?
Hold on, maybe you're right there. Yeah, no, you're right. It's Castle Grayskull, but I think
really?
it's on Snake Mountain.
It's on Snake Mountain. Okay.
Yeah, but that was close enough. Still, it was pretty good though. That threw me. For
My
a loop
brain
there,
didn't work
just
fast enough for that joke. Okay, Arnarth. During Bilbo's birthday party, who were tasked to wash the dishes for stealing some fireworks from the back of Gandalf's wagon?
Merry and Pippin.
Correct.
That's a good one.
Woohoo. And Mike, in The Hobbit, what was the name of Thorin's elven sword that originally came from Gondolin?
God, I don't remember. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Thorin's elven sword.
Do I get a point if I answer it?
You should give him a point if he answers
You
it,
can
yeah.
steal a point. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I believe it's Orcrist.
It is Orcrist.
Dang it! I did
Wow.
not remember that.
You are such a nerd. Okay.
My Hobbit lore is not nearly as good as my Lord of the Rings stuff.
That's great. You stole a point, and now
Yeah,
it's
that
your
was really
turn,
good.
Arnath. What happened to Lobelia Sackville Baggins after the War of the Rings?
I believe she dies during the purging of the Shire. I think
Correct.
Yeah.
She died and donated her money to help the hobbits.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so to finish up this round, Mike.
Yep.
Name the last war against the armies of Mordor.
Name the War of the Ring?
The last war against the armies of Mordor?
Oh, hold on. I actually don't remember that one. I was just thinking of a different one. He can steal a point if he wants to.
Wait, the last war?
Yeah.
In the Third Age or the Second Age?
It doesn't say. The last
Because I was thinking Second Age, but I was like, but I don't. It's not very clear.
I would say, you know what I think it is, Mike? I think it's the Last Alliance, because I don't think they named the last battle in the Third Age. I'm not sure if they did that. Or at least if this is a movie reference, it's probably The Last Alliance.
Correct. It says the last alliance of men and elves.
Wow. That was such a
Yay.
vague question. They're like, hey, you know what? Just
Yeah, because
throw it
that's
out
not the last battle of the host of Mordor.
Yeah.
They keep
Huh.
fighting.
Let's do we have, let's see, Aranarth, the score is Aranarth has 10 and Mike has 6.
Yeah, I'm getting destroyed.
Mike,
That's fair though. Yeah.
next question. What is the title of the second movie in the trilogy?
Towers. Wow.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that one just to give you an easy one. That was the next one.
Wow.
So there you go. We'll see if this one's an easy one too. Aranarth. In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Bilbo gives Frodo a powerful sword named Sting. This weapon has the magical ability to glow blue when which specific race is nearby?
Orcs.
Correct. Ooh, I need to get one of those sound boards. I
Oh
always,
yeah.
like Neurotic has, so we can do applause, because
Yeah.
it really feels like dead air now, and I want to have like the game show feel. Chris, don't let me forget. We need a soundboard.
We also need an intro. Says pop culture was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Yes, we need a couple. We need 2 more like songs. And anyway, okay, Mike, which ancient sword is known to be made by Telchar of Norgrod?
I have no clue. I'm just gonna say Glamdring because that's my favorite sword.
That's not the right answer. Aranarth, do you want to steal a point?
Oh, well, this
I don't know.
is definitely from the Silmarillion.
Yeah, he's digging deep. I can see it.
I can't remember the name of the sword, but I think it's Turin's sword that he ends up killing himself with.
Well,
Is
somebody in
it-
the go ahead.
It's a black sword. Is that right?
It doesn't say. It just says the name of it is Angrist.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
That was
But
a tough one.
It was a tough one. I like this answer from the chat though. Divina Duckworth says it's a racist sword.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we are at 11-7. We're almost at, we are past 10 o'clock. We should probably wrap it up. But this has been fun.
Yeah, I will happily accept defeat because he built a prancing pony in his house. He definitely knows more than I do. Yeah, that's amazing. Some of those questions were brutal. They're like, who wrote Lord of the Rings? And you're like, what? And then they're like, yeah, what was Frodo's mother's maiden name? Like, yeah.
What was Frodo's social security number?
That was fun though.
Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us tonight.
Of course.
Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to hit before we wrap it up?
I know it's been great. Like I said, I just want to learn more about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and what it meant to fans, people who are immersed in the lore, and compare it to the Amazon stuff. So it's fun.
Show sucks, man.
There may be like a silver lining that there's enough complaints about this show that people actually go out and read the books, which would be a good side effect here, or sort of I'm sure that would be considered a backfire by Amazon, but for storytelling, I think it would be really great if people would go and actually look at the material.
Yeah,
I hope so, because that's the way I was as a kid. Whenever a big movie had come out and it was based on a book, I'd want to go read that book. That's why I read Starship Troopers when that movie came out. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I've also seen a lot of people, even in this chat, were saying they want to go and rewatch the movies.
Yeah.
Also.
Yep.
Back to back.
I did miss a super chat. Thank you, Pirate Tomsky. Last one. He says, "Hobbit on a Phil." an antidepressant that makes you dance after you have something that comes in pints.
It's amazing.
Thank you, sir. And we got a couple of things from Pirate here where people can find you guys, but why don't you just tell them, Epic Mike, what you're working on, and we've got places to follow you here up on the screen.
Yep. So as you can see, my main thing is Twitch. I'm playing video games on there, where we do watch parties every Friday for Rings of Power, unfortunately, because I do have to watch the show. I don't have to, but you know what I mean. I watch it for you guys, so you don't have to do that. But yeah, you can also catch me every Saturday on Josiah Rise's channel on the Epic Verse Live. On Epic Verse Live, that's the name of the stream. Yeah, we're always there. We're talking about the latest things that happen. She-Hulk. You know, we'll be talking probably about Andor, talking about Rings of Power. And then we also have these very definitive tier lists about subjects that we have no qualifications to be classifying or making tier lists about. And then, yeah, keep you guys open. I have a YouTube channel that I did start. I have one video on there. It is not very good, but we're going to keep working on it because I'm going to keep working on YouTube to kind of keep putting more content out because I do want to get that up and going. So, yeah, that's what I got going on. But, yeah, I just appreciate the support. I love hanging out with Keri and her friends. You guys are awesome. I always love watching the shows. And, yeah, I was just happy to meet you, Chris. You're awesome. You're very silky, smooth voice. I was very impressed.
Oh yeah.
Hey, how's it going? And I'm like, wow. And yeah, dude, it was really awesome. And I cannot give enough praise because your piece on Galadriel was amazing. It's rare to see somebody give an articulate response that isn't just screaming about Amazon. It was nice to see somebody go, this is why I love this character. This is why she's not being done correctly. So yeah, mad respect, man. So thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
And Aranarth, we've got your Twitter up here on the screen. I know you can't see the screen, but if anybody wants to follow you, they can do so there and see some wonderful pictures of the prancing pony.
Yep. I also have a Facebook page for our group called Rangers of Trails End, and you can catch up with our stuff there. I mean, I lead a group of people that are trying to do some Tolkien-esque practical ranger stuff, and we post videos and pictures and all kinds of stuff there. So yeah, you can go find us there as well.
What I like about your group is not only do you guys have the most amazing clothing, and it's not cheap. It looks better than the stuff in Amazon. I'll give you that. and you guys take amazing photos, but that you actually learn a lot of these different weapons and practice them. And yeah, so if you guys want to find that on Facebook, the group is called the Rangers of Trails End, and you can follow along on Aranarth's journey. So cool. And Mystery Chris, Mystery Chris, I've got you up here on the screen as well. Pirate says he doesn't use Twitter, but please follow him anyway and annoy him.
I don't know how things work.
You just gotta pop in there more often. Like whenever you're sitting in those diversity trainings at work, just check into Twitter.
Real life tweet thing.
Yeah.
Play.
And Epic Mike, thank you for mentioning that your YouTube channel is up and live, because I didn't realize it was live yet. You guys go follow.
Don't promote it at all. I haven't talked about it because I haven't uploaded in 2 weeks because I'm working on trying to get a lot of video stuff figured out because I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, I appreciate it.
We're going to link it below. You guys go and subscribe because I know you're going to get awesome stuff up there. And thank you guys for hanging out with all 4 of us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the super chats. I hope you have a great night. I think that's it. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.